All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Brandon here. And I'm with Shaun Moser of the Conservation Garden Park. And today we're going to talk a little bit about Shaun's work, what his mission is over there at the garden park, how it came to be here in Utah, and, some more good stuff about the programming they offer there and maybe some tips that you can learn and apply for your own home and your own water conservation efforts. So, Shaun, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So I just want to share with you that I came across the Conservation Garden Park just as a natural kind of tourist. In my own background, I've had the privilege to work in helping to get like a food forest off the ground in my community. And I've also have an interest in gardening, like in my own house. And although I'm not like the greatest green thumb yet, it's still a passion. I really believe in growing your own food. I really believe in hands in soil and like that idea of getting back to nature. And
Awesome.
I also just really believe in how can we be more efficient with what we've got, like,
hmm
living off the land, so to speak, and
hmm
making those things work for you and for us. So when I visited the first time, boy, it was a surprise to find it right there, which was a pleasant surprise. And then upon going, it's beautiful. I mean, you know, I don't know if we have a botanical garden in our town, but this feels like a botanical garden if I've been anywhere else, like it's really beautiful. It's expertly laid out. Everything is proper. I mean, plants, signage, comfortability. There's like amphitheater area. You've got, you know, boardrooms and offices where, obviously you probably have meetings or events, and it's a special place. So why don't you take a minute and tell us a little bit about it, and whatever you want to talk about for how it got here, how it came to be, and maybe if there's something of interest that you want to share about it.
Yeah, it sounds good. So the Conservation Garden Park is about 23 years old now.
Okay.
It's owned and operated by Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District. So I'm actually an employee of the local water district. And Conservation Garden Park is essentially, think of it as like a department of the water district.
Okay.
So Jordan Valley Water Conservancy District is a wholesale drinking water supplier to most of Salt Lake County, mainly the west side, south side, parts of the east side of Salt Lake County. But the water district built the garden about 20 years ago to conserve water in its service area where we're delivering drinking water. And the reason for that is about 60% or so of our drinking water that we produce is actually put on our landscapes. So it's not actually indoor water use. It's water that's being used to water lawns, flower beds, vegetable gardens, spraying off driveways, doing all those things that you might do with water outside. About 60% of our water that we deliver is
Now,
for those
distinction, you
reasons.
did say drinking water,
Yep.
correct?
Yeah,
And then
it's
you
drinking
also
water.
said 60% of drinking water is going to those other uses.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. So we see that indoor water usage makes up about 40% of what we deliver, and it stays pretty consistent throughout the year.
Okay.
January through December, we're delivering about the same amount of water for indoor water uses. But in the spring, summer, and fall, that's where the water usage for drinking water really goes up because people are watering their landscapes during that time of year.
So, a big part of the garden park obviously is, showing how to be a little more sustainable with that water usage. Can you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about that
Yeah.
and
So
at the park?
yeah, absolutely. So we're similar to a botanical garden, like you
Mhm.
mentioned, but we're more of a demonstration garden where we're showing principles that people can learn and apply to their own landscape to have a more water efficient, sustainable landscape at their own home. Or maybe they own a business and they're wanting to change the landscape around their business to be more sustainable and water conserving. So that's really what we're all about, and what makes us a little bit different than a standard botanical garden, because we want people to take what they learn and apply it to what they've got. We've got the garden that people can walk around and learn from. We've got bunches of exhibits. We're about 8 to 9 acres ish right now that the garden exists in. We also teach classes both online and in person that can help people make these changes in their landscape to be more water efficient, along with coming and learning at the garden itself, walking around.
Now, go a little deeper on some of these classes. Are these pop-up type classes, or are there a series of classes that people can sign up for and attend?
Yeah, so it's mainly a series of classes and some one-off classes. So we teach about 50 classes per year. Some of them are online webinars that are live. Some of them are in person here at the garden. And then others are previously recorded classes that people can watch on demand at their home anytime they want to. And there we have what's called our core classes, which is based off of a principle or an educational program that we have called Localscapes.
Yes.
So Localscapes is all about having a Utah-friendly, sustainable landscape. So our core classes are based off of Localscapes, but then we have other classes that help to build off of those core principles. So we teach a class on water-efficient vegetable gardening. We teach classes on installing a path in your landscape. We teach classes on planting maintenance or planting bed maintenance. So how to take care of your shrubs and trees and perennials and all the things that you would have to learn in order to take care of a landscape that's not just all lawn.
That sounds very cool. That sounds very cool. And the facilities are just absolutely gorgeous. So I take it that, 20, 23 years you've kind of been at the location, but surely some of the stuff has got to be, newer than that, because it looks so pristine. And what is that process like? And is everything done with an in-house team? How is everything coming together? And when you are building a new, parcel or a new section on that acreage, are you inviting the public to come and learn as you're actually building and do demonstration days, or is it more you kind of set it up and then you invite them in?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both there, but you're right. I mean, some of the garden is 23 years old. Some of it's only 4 years old, or even less, some of the exhibits. The original part of the garden was built all those years ago, and we would have visitors come and they would say, "Hey, I really like what I'm seeing here at the garden, but I have no idea how to apply it to my own landscape." Yeah. So the most recent exhibit that we've installed is a exhibit based on our Localscapes program. So we decided, okay, one of the things people are struggling with when they come to the garden is they don't know how to apply it to their own landscape, and the exhibits that we're showing are not at a residential landscape scale. Yeah. So we decided to install a 1/4 acre residential landscape with the Localscapes principles built right into it, so people can learn based off of actually looking at a 1/4 acre residential landscape. We have about 3 to 4 full-time staff members that are horticulturists or have landscape design backgrounds here working at the garden, maintaining it year-round. And then we hire anywhere from 8 to 12 seasonal or temporary horticulturists each growing season, so spring through fall. They help us maintain the garden, give school tours, help educate the public. A lot of them are students at local universities. So they're coming from Utah State University's horticulture program or the University of Utah's environmental science program. We get students from BYU also that a lot of them need internships for their degree that they're going to get. So they come here, they work with us, they learn, they get their internship credit hours, and it works out nicely that way. So they're doing a lot of the maintenance out there. They're doing a lot of the plant and irrigation installations, even in the newer parts of the garden.
Okay.
And we do have some volunteers that come and help us do some of that as we're installing new parts of the garden.
That's excellent. That's excellent. I also noticed that you had food trucks out there. Is that a regular thing?
That's something that's pretty new as of this year. In the past, we had food trucks mainly for events.
Yes.
But we're trying to bring in some food trucks more on like a regular basis on maybe Fridays or Saturdays.
Okay.
Because we see the garden as a community asset. And we just want to provide fun things to do here while people learn about sustainable landscapes as much as we can.
Yeah, it was when I was there, it was a pleasant surprise to go out and, see some, I think it was Venezuelan food that day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That they have some great food. I think it's the red food truck.
The red food truck, yes.
Yeah, and I think it's Peruvian food.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's really good.
Okay, yeah, that's super cool. Now, along with the classes and the tree and shrub tours, you also do some like the landscape design classes. Now, I wonder, do you partner or do you offer those classes like for anybody, or is that for like people that are home service businesses owners that are like landscape design companies? Who's taking those classes?
No, so the main group that takes those landscape classes are homeowners. So these are people that want to make changes in their own landscape. And then they attend typically a series of classes. Mm-hmm. So the first one is Localscapes University, which is based on the Localscapes program that I've talked about. Mm-hmm. And it just gives the basics of Localscapes. And then we have 2 classes that are add-ons to that. So there's an irrigation workshop where we literally lay out irrigation parts in the classroom, and we teach people how to design and install an irrigation system for their yard. And then we have a design workshop where we're actually laying out the physical features of the landscape or the localscapes on their plan with them. We don't go into great detail, but we give all of the information that's needed to make sure their landscape is as water efficient as possible once installed.
And what about the relationship with local nurseries? Is that something that's kind of thriving?
Yeah, so we work a lot with local nurseries. I mean, as we're removing lawn, there's a lot more opportunity for shrubs and perennials and trees and other things like that to be sold to replace some of the lawn that was there previously. We do, with our Localscapes program, have Localscapes partners, and some of them are retail partners, meaning plant nurseries.
Yes.
So if people go on localscapes.com, they can learn about Localscapes, but they can also see a list of partners below. Some of them are plant nurseries, some of them are landscape designers, contractors. Now, we're not really vouching for their work per se, but essentially what it shows is there's these local companies and businesses that believe in Localscapes and what it does, and they want to be part of it and help you with it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And what about the adoption rate, or how much have you really seen in the community homes that have taken this to heart and then, applied it and like you said, ripped up their lawns and put in, different scapes?
Yeah, so we've seen the adoption rate continue to increase every year. Localscapes has been around since we created it here at this water district in 2015. And now it's a statewide educational program. But I would say the first few years we had, I don't know, 10 to 15 people actually complete a Localscape. But now we're in the couple hundred a year. people switching their traditional landscape to a local scape, a more water efficient landscape. So we're definitely seeing the trend line going up and up and up, which is nice.
Absolutely. And as you drive around neighborhoods here, you definitely see it. So even if not all of them are coming directly through, the ripple effect is probably
Yes.
massive. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We call that the copycat effect. So
Yes.
we've seen people attend our class,
Okay.
decide to rip lawn out of their park strip and put in a water-wise park strip. And because we want people to put in drip irrigation and mulch and nice looking plants, their project and their park strip usually looks really great and
Yes.
actually ends up being one of the nicer looking park strips on the block. And then their neighbors see it and decide, I like that. I'm going to do that myself too. So there's definitely the ripple effect or the copycat effect that goes on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, net positive all the way because
Yeah,
you get more people, saving water and such. Uh,
absolutely.
to that end, can you talk a little bit about what some of our unique challenges are here, in the Salt Lake area and what the challenges are with the water?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have a pretty unique situation. The mountains are very important to our water supply. Uh, and without the mountains and without the reservoirs that we have, I don't believe the population would be here. There may be some people living here, but the amount of people that live here, it
Hmm.
wouldn't it wouldn't exist without the mountains and the reservoirs that we've got to store water. The issue that we have
Yes.
is the population's going to continue to increase. Uh, Typically, the numbers that I see is the population's supposed to double by 2060. The problem is the water supply cannot double. Uh, the easiest, cheapest ways for us to get water, that's already been done. Any other ways that we would get water is really expensive and has its own impacts even beyond expense. So the water districts have designated water conservation essentially as water supply. And in a
Hmm.
lot of ways, water conservation ends up being cheaper in the long run than trying to find new water and piping new water all over the place.
Sure.
So it's important that we take the steps to conserve water rather than just continuously draining our reservoirs and doing all those things. Now, we've had a pretty good winter,
Yes.
which has been really nice, which has filled up a lot of our reservoirs. But I think we need to take a new stance or a new ethic in Utah when it comes to water. It
Yes.
shouldn't matter if we're in a drought or not. We should all be responsible with the water that we're using so we can keep as much water as possible in those reservoirs. So when we go through long periods of drought, we can make that water last as long as we possibly can. Until hopefully we get another good winter again. But in a 10-year period, we might have 8 or 9 dry winters with
Yes.
one good winter.
So, what kind of incentives are you seeing, or what kind of and it's harsh to even have to think like that we need incentives to
Yeah.
get people to want to conserve water. I mean, a finite resource, and
Yeah.
especially clean and fresh water and these kinds of things. But that being said, what are you seeing that are ways to entice the
Mhm.
citizens and the population to do the good work?
Yeah, absolutely. So our water district started some landscape rebate programs around 2016 or so. And our first rebate program that we came out with was called Flip Your Strip.
With your
Some
strip?
people may be familiar with that term,
Yeah.
but we were paying people to remove lawn out of their park strip, put in water wise plants, drip system, mulch. And then about a year later after that, we started to incentivize entire landscapes or full landscape projects. So people taking a traditional landscape and converting it to a water wise local scape. And we
Yes.
were giving a reward or a rebate for that. And so we've been doing that for a few years. This year, the programs are brand new.
Okay.
So all of the landscape incentives or rebates are now hosted on a website called Utah Water Savers. So anyone in Utah can go on Utah Water Savers. They can create an account, and then based on where they live and who provides them water, they can see which of these rebates or incentives are available to them. So for instance, in our service area
Hmm.
here in Salt Lake County, we have what's called the Landscape Incentive Program. So someone could flip their park strip, or they could swap out their front yard or their backyard or their whole yard to be more water efficient.
Yes.
And the project should be covered and given a rebate under the Landscape Incentive Program. These programs are now available statewide. They're run by the other water districts and the state throughout Utah. So yeah, there's incentives and rebates out there. The biggest caveat that I would mention though is in a lot of cases, if someone wants to participate in the program, their
Yes.
city has to adopt water efficiency standards or landscape ordinances that require water efficient landscapes to be put in the first place. And
Yes.
then once their city has done that, then the residents are eligible for the rebates and the incentives.
Well, that's all great information. I mean, great information for the individual homeowners, and hopefully anybody that's listening that's part of like a, you know, master naturalist group or a master gardeners type of group. So,
Yeah,
they're going to be more incentivized, like they, or at least collected together, they're already a
yeah,
team, locked arms of gardeners and people that care about this kind of stuff. So that's,
absolutely. And for example, in our service area, people can receive up to $3 per square foot of lawn removed, which is a decent amount of money.
yeah, absolutely. That's solid,
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, when you impact the bottom line like that, people that helps people make the decision a lot.
absolutely. And like I mentioned to the water districts, this is essentially water supply. Because we're conserving water, the water that we have already can be stretched farther.
Hmm. That's really wonderful. That's really wonderful. I want to ask you a little bit, maybe now, about the irrigation specifically. When you tour the conservation garden park, you've got all those great big pipes, and that's
Mhm,
fun. Not only are they large enough that you can walk through some of them, and just seeing
mhm.
the big gears, and even the signage that's kind of helpful in letting us know, like when we live in tract housing or in a kind of a neighborhood, like this is what's underneath, like
Yes.
Ninja Turtle style. You might
Yeah.
see like this is how it's getting to us.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned there's a specific way that we've kind of been doing water for a long time, and then can you kind of talk to what that way is, and then a little bit the difference to this more proper, whether you want to call it xeriscaping or lands,
Yeah. So
waterscapes.
so your question is about how we've been watering our landscapes in the past versus how we should be?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say the way that we've been watering our landscapes in the past is based solely on the fact that we mainly have lawn in our landscapes.
Hmm.
So because, and really inherently there's nothing wrong with lawn. And it's a good plant. We just have too much of it.
Hmm.
So lots of our landscapes are lawn. Lots of our irrigation systems are spray sprinklers. So we're throwing water in the air to water the lawn, and that water can be pushed around by the wind, or it can be evaporated by the sun, or because it's being thrown in the air, maybe in a park strip, it
Yes.
can go down the gutter or thrown on the sidewalk or on the driveway. It's really just an inefficient way to water. So what we've done, and maybe I can talk about how Localscapes teaches it,
Okay.
is the most efficient way to water a landscape is to design, if you're still going to have lawn, design it as a central open shape or space of lawn in the middle of the front yard, in the middle of the backyard, and don't put lawn in park strips or narrow side yards or areas where it's less than 8 feet wide, where it can't be watered efficiently. And then anything else that has plants in it, shrubs, trees, perennials, things like that, it's all watered by drip irrigation. Drip irrigation is over 90% efficient. So it delivers water directly to the soil where the plant roots are, and that's not throwing water into the air where it can easily be wasted or evaporated, blown around by wind. So yeah, that's the main thing that we like to do and like people to see, is just make their system overall more efficient. And part of that means just reducing the amount of lawn that you have and where you have it. Put it in an area where it can be watered and maintained efficiently.
Yeah, totally. I feel both proud that I've got some drip irrigation, but also guilty of the other, because I know that, even here we got some lawn with sprinklers that are throwing it up. And, even with the automatic system going on a couple times a day, there's been times when personally I've gone out and just realized, oh, there's way too much water at this time, or
Yep.
the opposite. This water is all going on the sidewalk and the street, and however much is going there could better be suited and served going in the yard, and
Yep.
and from doing other projects, like I love some of those permaculture ideas, like stacking efficiencies.
Yeah.
We've got a pool, and sometimes it requires draining the pool, so that was cool in some aspects, because you're like, okay, you can put some of this salt water ish into the landscaping areas. But even so, once you're walking around your yard, and once you're kind of really looking at these things, you can see the inefficiencies. And
Oh yeah.
it makes it so important for people to be able to go and visit the garden park and see just how the drip irrigation is done, see some of the different styles. And it's really beautiful too. I mean, it's definitely like a net upgrade, I would say, because we all know lawns, and I love a good lawn too. I love lawn.
Me
right?
too. Yep.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I would say so you talk about a little bit about the inefficiencies that you see in irrigation systems, or I think you mentioned something about the fact how the garden looks nice, so it's an upgrade, right?
Yes.
That's actually one of the reasons we developed Localscapes, is because we did a focus group where we kind of surveyed residents. It was in 2013, and we asked them what they thought about the word xeriscape, and what came to their mind. And in Utah, when you say the word xeriscape, it gets turned to zeroscape in people's minds, and people picture cactus and lava rock and a cattle skull. And
I'm so happy you brought this up, because
and that's not what we're teaching.
Yes.
That's not what we're teaching at all.
No.
But we also knew that if we need people to conserve water, if our lead is xeriscape, and that's what we think, and that's what they think, it's in some way we've already lost that battle. So we came up with Localscapes. We did some rebranding.
Yes.
We made the xeriscapes principles more easy to understand and be more applicable to Utah. And that's kind of what Localscapes was born from. So not only do you get a water efficient landscape, but it's more functional. It's nice to look at. There's things for pollinators and birds and urban wildlife and all of those things. It solves so many other problems, but it also happens to conserve water at the same time.
I'm so happy you brought that up. Really, really so happy, because that's, if I was to encourage people, I would definitely encourage them to go out to the garden park and check it out. And one of the first things that stands out really is the beauty. And it's not, like that cactus. It's not like that at all. It's definitely beautiful, and it's a mixture of, like you said, the rocks and the mulch and different things that really bring beauty to a space, and bring the different elements, and that makes, because like with the lawn, you think of that monoculture, that one kind of thing, and has its place. But when you're able to add a little depth and mounds and different colors, it just works. It just works. And
Yeah.
like you said, with pollinators, now you're doing another benefit of bringing, bees and birds around. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Absolutely.
excellent.
Yeah, and I like you mentioned, lawn is fine. I mean, I like lawn,
Yeah.
but we just have too much of it. And I think as we continue to evolve our landscapes in Utah, we will still have lawn, but we're
Hmm.
going to try to make sure lawn is located in areas where it's considered an active recreational surface,
Hmm.
soccer fields, football fields, baseball fields. I think those are all beneficial uses of lawn, and lawn does works for those things better than any other plant. You can't
Hmm.
really replace lawn in a baseball field with some other shrub or something like that. It doesn't really work. So lawn does definitely has the corner on the market when it comes to active recreational surfaces. But if you go to a city park, does lawn have to be everywhere in all of the park strips and all of the other areas surrounding the soccer field? Or can we just keep it to the soccer field and have water-wise landscaping around that soccer field?
Yeah, definitely. Sure. You
Mm-hmm.
know, sometimes the wildflowers and some of the other stuff along pathways and the walk strips like that, they also bring that beauty because then we get butterflies and, just the, secret garden effect of being able to walk
Yeah.
down the path with like some taller grasses and such.
Yeah, and plants have been shown to have a positive impact just on our well-being. Like walking through a park where you've got flowers and butterflies and bees and all those things, I think are good for our mental well-being.
100%. 100%. Another thing is the diversity of plants obviously is going to help the soil, you know,
Yes,
and that's another positive because helping the soil in one area, it's just going to make it alive and that's going to spread. And then we'll have, generally healthier soil all over the place.
absolutely. Yeah, one of the things that we try to teach people here at the garden is you're not really growing healthy plants, you're growing healthy soil in order to grow healthy plants.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the parks and the recreation surfaces. Is there an active partnership with many of these parks and the conservancies
Mhm.
to make sure all new parks are kind of designed with these principles?
Yeah, yeah. So I think the cities in general have, over the last, I don't know, 5, 10 years or so, have done a really good job at anytime they install a new park. They're really thinking about water efficiency and active recreational spaces where it makes sense to have lawn. So definitely. And then we've been working with local cities and parks to help. Uh, Pay to retrofit some of the old parks that
Yes.
were mainly lawn and converting them to more of a balanced, sustainable landscape system.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's great. Thinking about some of these parks that have maybe been underutilized for a while too, because it kind of turned into an old sandlot type of park.
Yeah,
And
yeah, absolutely,
going to bring people back, which is going to just bring people into healthy environments, walking and enjoying each other's, company and stuff. So that's
absolutely.
wonderful. What about you've shared a lot, which is really wonderful. I'm appreciative of you, Shaun,
Mhm, no
and
problem.
I'm appreciative of the park in general. Maybe what about some of the events that happen now at the garden park?
Mhm,
Because I know people can come and maybe you can share what the hours are and when it's for regular people to just come and check it out. And then
yeah,
also some site specific events that might people put on their calendar, their mental
sure.
notes. Thank you.
Yeah. So right now we're in our summer hours.
Hmm.
So our summer hours include May through August, and we're open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. We're free to visit. There's no admission fee. You can show up anytime you want in between those hours.
Okay.
Then as we go into the fall, we're still open on Saturdays, but we close at 6:30 p.m. And that's mainly just due to daylight
Sure.
changes. And then we're open through the winter and the spring also. But I would say right now, this time of year is probably the most popular time to come. Um, We have mainly classes that we're doing. We actually abandoned events because of the pandemic.
Hmm.
We used to have large garden fairs and what we called Party in the Park, which was our big event in August. And they were great events. We'd get several thousand people in here, but
Hmm.
the pandemic kind of killed those events,
Sure.
unfortunately. But it gave us actually a good opportunity to rethink and reconsider what we're doing with events and maybe focus them a little bit more than they were before, because we were bringing in lots of people before, but we don't know that we were conserving a lot of water when we would do that.
Yeah.
Whereas the event that we had this year, which was, I think it was 2 weekends ago, it was a garden open house. And the idea behind it was we'd get a few hundred people in here, so still pretty good event. But the
Yes.
individuals that were coming specifically because they were working on a landscape project.
Yeah.
So they wanted to come to us, ask questions that they had. We had demonstration booths out in the garden where we were showing irrigation parts and design your own park strip, and we had plants out there. So it was a very focused event. We thought it was really successful. So we'll continue that in the future. We don't have another one on the schedule yet. We
Yes.
could see one in August or September. We haven't decided on that yet, but for sure we'll continue that sort of thing into the future. More focused events where people can learn how to change their landscape up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Especially, I was giggling because I was thinking of the pop star Miley Cyrus
Oh,
announcing that she doesn't want to do stadium tours
yes.
because there's not much personal contact,
Yeah.
and smaller parties are just more intimate,
Yes.
and they're just wonderful because then you have a really an engaged audience of people that are really there because they appreciate the principles. Maybe they're bringing some knowledge themselves, or they're
Mhm.
there to get that next level, that next step of information to be able to go implement right away. So I
Absolutely.
love that idea. I love that idea. And
Yeah, and that's actually what we heard from quite a few of the attendees is this is the thing that they needed. They had watched some of our classes, they had
mhm,
visited the garden, but to actually have our staff in the garden ready to answer any questions that they had was exactly what they were looking for. So we thought it was super successful.
yeah, yeah, definitely goes a long way. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about the garden? Maybe for a first-time visitor, or maybe for somebody that's been before and wanting to come back, or another
Mhm.
reason for them to come back?
Yeah, so I would say the main reason to come back, even multiple times a year, is the garden changes significantly throughout the year.
Hmm.
In the spring, we've got lots of tulips and daffodils and all your traditional spring blooming plants going on. But then in May and June, we have a whole other wave of plants that are looking good and blooming. And then it continues to transition throughout the summer. The fall is actually my favorite time of the year.
Okay.
Get all the fall colors. Some of the plants that bloom in the garden don't bloom until September. They're like the last show in the garden,
Yeah.
and they don't do it until September or October. So there's always something to look at that's new and different at the garden, just because the plants change throughout the year.
Absolutely. My first visit came, I would probably say in that transition of winter to spring,
Oh
and it
yeah,
was a snow day even,
yeah,
and it was still really beautiful, and it was a pleasant walk, even with some, slurries coming down, and like you said, really appreciate being able to see the different changing seasons right there.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's what I'd recommend is just come a few times to see it change.
Hmm. And as far as finding you guys online, where can people go to find you and maybe tag you if they want to share their own pictures of their
Yeah,
visits?
yeah, absolutely. So our website is conservationgardenpark.org.
Nice.
So on there, you can find the general information about the garden, including the hours that we're open. You can see our classes and events that we have coming up. All of our classes are free. We don't charge for any of our classes. All of our events that we have that the garden hosts are free also. So you can see those on there. On that website, there's a link to our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and then also our YouTube channel. That's actually something I'd like to bring up is
Yeah.
We've put a lot of work into our YouTube channel over the last couple years. In
Okay.
some ways, the pandemic kind of forced us into it. A
Yeah.
lot of our education was in-person stuff
Yes.
before the pandemic, but we've put a lot of our classes, a lot of our educational offerings, they're all on YouTube now. So you can find it by just searching Conservation Garden Park on YouTube. And we've got our class recordings. We've got like DIY, like instructional videos on like how to maintain perennials or prune your shrubs or fix your irrigation system, switching a sprinkler system to a drip system. All of that can be found on our YouTube channel. So, and then if you're interested in localscapes, you can visit localscapes.com. A lot of the information is on there. And then if you're in Utah and you're interested in the landscape incentive program, I'd invite you to go to utahwatersavers.com. And if you create an account on there, it'll
Yes.
show you what's available to you based on where you live and who provides water to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shaun. I mean,
No
it was
problem.
wonderful having you and wonderful to hear this information. I'll definitely include all those websites in the show notes. So, anybody that's listening and tuning in can have access to that. And it's really a beautiful thing you're doing for the community. It's a beautiful thing for the environment, the educational aspect and showing people that there are new ways and different ways. And really, some of these are older ways too, but bringing them into the community is really nice and a net positive, saving water, conserving.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you. You have a great afternoon.
You too. Thanks.